It's time for our last guest of this evening, Mr. Lochie Macgillivray, helping farmers on the ground in Hawke's Bay suffering from a devastating season of drought amidst COVID-19, the M-Bovis eradication continuing, and a TB movement lockdown as well. So anyone hoarding winter feed out there, it's time to let us know. Lochie now joins us. Can you explain, sir, what you have learnt recently from surveying the needs of your farmers?
Okay. So thanks, Sarah, and hi, everybody. So feed is a major concern, obviously, or lack of it. Water has been as well. I mean, a lot of dams have dried up. And as I was saying the other day to you, Sarah, where the drought was quite severe was on the sort of the hills next to the ranges, which typically have good water, but their springs had dried up because the mountain range was quite low in terms of rainfall. So water was an issue there as well. Springs had dried and dams had dried. But one of the other major concerns that's really sort of raising its head at the moment is sort of the logistics of how can they unload stock? The auction system stopped, so where do they get transparency from prices? We've got the meat companies working hard, but only at 50% capability and capacity. And so that whole supply chain is quite disrupted. And so that's up there with the concerns as well. COVID in itself is not such a problem at this stage. Farmers are used to just working in their little bubble, but that's probably going to come later, maybe.
How are you deploying the troops in terms of action groups on the ground?
Yeah, so what we've done is, to go back, the Rural Support Trust are doing a really good job, and so they've rung a lot of farmers around in Hawke's Bay, and so that gave us a pretty good feel geospatially of where the issues were. And we've got the support of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. I mean, they've been fantastic, and they developed the platform for that geospatial resource, plus staff as well. And we've set up 8 teams of people that are comprised of the Rural Advisory Group, the RAG Group, Rural Support Trust, so just key members of the community and somebody from the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. And so with these 8 teams, a team that's focusing on water, another on feed, another one on logistics, one on welfare, one on animal welfare, one on finance, so the Maori liaison one as well. And we've got a little Wairua one as well, because, they're quite a different community further north and not so affected by the drought as much as the people lower down, but certainly have got M-Bovis and a bit of TB issues in there as well. So there's slightly different issues. And so we've got 5 or 8, up to 8 people in each of those teams, and they sort of problem solve for an individual or for the region as well, trying to look at each of the problems, linking through with each of the team leaders so we get some commonality for our resolve. So we're early days, and we've just had that structure in place now for just on a week, I suppose. And the phones have been busy, and people are ringing in and asking for help on a range of issues. And it's kind of using that team think mentality that trying to resolve the issues.
MPI.
So, yeah, go on.
Sorry, MPI recently put a considerable amount of money up the game, actually, on the drought assistance package. Are you seeing that start to filter through, Lochie?
Not yet. I mean, I think there's what they've done is they've set up a system that came into play on Thursday last week, where there's 0800 numbers for farmers to ring, 0800 beef and lamb, 0800 dairy NZ, 0800 ag first, and that takes farmers through a step process. So the first stage is is there an easy resolve here? The second stage is taking them on to a subject matter expert and seeing if they can solve a feed problem or another problem. That's probably a couple of hours on a phone. And then the third stage is actually getting somebody out there to physically help. So the second and third stage hasn't really happened that I'm aware of at this stage, but certainly these people ringing in on the first stage, and they just might be trying to source where they can get feed, where they can get advice, a bit of reassurance, and there's a feedback going back into the Rural Support Trust of those sorts of people. They sound quite vulnerable, and I missed on that conversation that your sister was talking about, but that's quite critical now in rural landscapes. We had an unfortunate event just last week locally here, and so we've just got to be really mindful of the stress that's happening out there.
What would you suggest to people listening that if they want to be able to support from afar, in particular, what feedback are you getting from what feed is available and can be redistributed, or is it just pretty short everywhere?
Yeah, well, it is short everywhere. I mean, except for you guys in the South Highland, at the bottom of the South Highland there's possibly a bit of food, but it's pretty skint here. Maize available a bit, barley a little bit, sheep nuts not so, silage and hay and baleage is pretty much gone. And generally farmers have been able to poke around and get a bit of grazing for cows, but because it's so widespread, that's been lapped up as well. So if there is somebody with a bit of feed, get hold of us, get hold of Beef and Lamb or the Rural Support Trust, and say even if it's just 10 or 20 bales or balers for hay or something, it all helps. I was talking to a farmer today, and he's down to his last 16 bales. The rabbits are taking a cut lunch. He had a bit of rain, but each blade of grass has got a name on it, and that gets taken pretty quickly. And he's trying to generate a feed to get into the winter, and use a light. It's a bit of a dire situation, really.
And
if someone got some feed, get hold of us.
You've been in this game for a long, long time, Lochie, with Ag First and of course farming yourself. I mean, have you ever seen the cards sort of stack up like this in your history?
No. And look, my first drought that I went through myself was 82, 83. And I remember some droughts my father had farmed through. And that was a pearler, and like a lot of your listeners, they can just rattle them off. Next one, 88, 87, 88, and you can reel them off. And they're all a little bit different. They all start a bit earlier or a bit later or finish a bit later. But this one is unique in that it's across the whole of the North Island, and compounded upon that is sort of movement restrictions with M. bovis and the like. And so, we really have quite a unique situation here that we haven't seen before. We've got really good support, as I said, from the Regional Council, and we've got a good weather forecasting ability in there that look at all the models. And, we hope for these cyclones to come down in Hawke's Bay sort of in that March, April time of the year, and that can give us a good dollop of rain. But there's nothing on the horizon for that. And so we don't see a big rainfall that comes through that's going to be the game breaker for us. But on top of that, Sarah, it's getting too late for that as well. We're into April, it's getting colder, and the guys that got hit with the drought first and worst are on the hills, they're high country. And so, what their feed covers are typically end of April, that's what they have at the end of the winter. Well, they've got no feed covers at all. So, I'm worried.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to obviously end the show on such a negative, especially when people at nighttime have
Sorry.
got so much on their mind, and nighttime's a terrible thing for overthinking things and not sleeping properly, Lochie.
Yeah.
What are some of those things you go, you know what, mate, you've got this? Like we're trying to say to the rest of New Zealand, we'll weather together, we'll get through this. How can you unpack that little scrambled brain of theirs and sort of go give them a glimmer of hope?
Well, look, in my experience, sometimes the problem is not as bad as what I'm thinking it is and worrying about it. And so, I know what it's like to, wake up in the middle of the night and you worry about things that in the light of day, probably not, not as bad. If you do a feed budget, at least that way you know where you are and talk to your financiers and they will be very accommodating. And then put a team around yourself. So try not take on that whole weight of everything on your own shoulders. I mean, you need to be talking to your spouse and your family members and your neighbours, but even people who aren't so close to you, build this team of trusted people around you, so your financiers and maybe somebody can help you with the feed budgeting, and let them share some of the weight. Don't try and carry it all yourself is kind of what my message would be. And we do get through this, it does rain again and the days get longer and all those sorts of things. So we get through. It's just about managing it until that time happens.
Absolutely.
So
and my last full show podcast, it's an audio version, there's a bloody good song in there. When I hit rock bottom once upon a time, Lochie, far, far away, there's a song called Every Storm Runs Out of Rain by Gary Allan. I suggest anybody who's listening to play that on repeat. It is really, really good. And I've got to agree with Lochie. I had the opportunity to have free funding, which is available to anybody, to talk to a mentor, a business mentor over the weekend, part of the regional business network, as well as spent Sunday doing my cash flow to go, shit, no, I can get through this. And all of a sudden, you just feel so much more supported and in control. And that's just me and Joel. I'm just underplaying it. Of course, there is the availability of free farm consultants like yourself, Lochie. That funding's come through from MPI. Take it up. Make the most of this funding that the government's putting out there. I mean, shit, you paid enough taxes. And really just have people walk beside you because it is actually, as the words of Travis Tritt, it's a great day to be alive, and it will be tomorrow too. And for those of you who are really struggling to be able to help support others around you, there is support for you as well as the people struggling. Get in touch with the good people at Rural Support Trust as well.
This is Sarah's Country.